Yeah, hey, look at that. So, welcome to this first for AIMExpo and for Sam and myself and Garagecast. For many of you that may or may not know, we have a weekly podcast that we put out named Garagecast, where we're talking to industry leaders from OEMs to dealers to third-party vendors to actors, race car drivers, all kinds of weird
all
people
the above, yeah.
that we've had on our show. So we'll give you a couple of rules here first, and then we're going to just straight up intro the podcast and we're going to begin. So this is going to be the first time where we're actually going to take live questions from the audience. So if you came and thought that you're just going to sit there and do nothing, it takes a little bit of an exercise. So I want you thinking about anything that might be in your head at your dealership or for dealers or for manufacturers that you want to ask yourself, hey, you know, what about this? What about service? What about the digital marketplace? What about sales? What about supply chain? Whatever that might be, go up to one of these microphones and just pop us a question. And we're going to just answer those live right here in front of you guys, and we can work through those kind of back and forth with Sam and myself.
Yeah, we've got our computers teed up with some data on here. I've got our composites, our national averages for metric and Harley through all of last year, so we can reference data points in here. It's profitability, margins, all kinds of stuff like that. Obviously, we've got the report from this morning for those of you who were here for that kickoff with the panel. For those guys, if you want to ask a follow-up on that, Tony and I talked about staging bullet points and pushing that out and in some controlled environment, and it's just. Every podcast we've ever done is so much better when we just have a little bit of framework and we just go. So we're going to leave that up to you guys. We're going to get you primed with a topic in the digital landscape. But then we want you to jump up. We want you to grab the mics that are in front of you and ask the question that nobody's asking. That's always the one that's the most fun to talk about. Be it inventory or pricing or consumer sentiment. I find it funny that sometimes you're hearing about consumer sentiment in some of these reports that we're seeing that come across the emails, but that's certainly not what we're seeing in the MIC brochure from this morning or the pamphlet from this morning. So we're going to kick this off as if we're doing a live podcast, which we are, and then we're going to get rolling on the questions. Fair enough?
Everybody understand the rules? Okay, we ready?
Let's go.
All right, so welcome to Garagecast. Tony Gonzales coming to you live for the first time ever with Garagecast. On the floor of the AIMExpo, I got my sidekick here, Sam Dantzler.
Dude, can you believe this show?
I can believe this show. This is freaking amazing.
Giddy.
It's getting bigger, seems like, every single year that we come here.
Yeah, you go back to the Indy show, and then it became, Powersports Accelerator, and then it became AIMExpo, and people are like, yeah, well, it's not what the Indy show was. Right, neither's the industry.
True.
Neither's the industry, right? The internet came along, and all of a sudden the manufacturers were putting all their units out there long before the Indy show, which used to be the big unveil, if you guys remember that. And so the show is different, and it's definitely taken on a training element. But it's great to see all these people here, and all the brands, all the major brands, and the vendors and everything. So excited to be here.
I got one thing that I got to say about this straight off the bat, which is Sam and I were talking about this at lunch. Man, it is time to, it's great to see the representation that we're seeing from the manufacturers that are in the building and the third-party vendors, but we were just talking about, and again, the industry is not the same, but we really truly feel that it would be great to have all the manufacturers here representing all their brands and have their people here rubbing elbows back to a longer show, back to a commitment from where it all starts, and that's at the manufacturing level. So bravo that we do have representation here.
Yep.
Let's make sure that we continue to grow that and we continue to get a larger representation by brands and more people here. Would we all agree to that in the audience? I see a lot of head shaking. So yeah, and silent golf clapping to that one. So, all right. So, we talked to the audience before we started, and we kind of told them that we're going to prime their pump with the first question, because nobody wants to come up to a mic cold at the beginning of a first ever done podcast on the AIMExpo floor and fire off a question. So Sam and I are going to talk first and foremost about the digital lead and the digital landscape within the power sports industry. So it was about 3 years ago, Sam, where we put what we called our digital traffic log into our composite book. And at that time, what we told our dealers was, this is going to become what we feel is the most important category on our composite. And that was a huge change, was it not? I mean,
it was a big one. I'm sitting here thinking, was it 3 years ago? You know what it
was?
We were in California. It was 2019 before COVID hit.
Yep.
It's amazing how much time flies by, right?
It was even longer than 3, yeah. But if anybody has been in this industry long enough, we knew that, well, at least our company that was founded on and our mentor, Ed Lemko, everything was based upon the traffic log, what you're doing with the people that are coming through your door. And that was like as sacred as it came. And we would start off our composite reviews with, let's go to that top left corner. Well, we told dealers, hey, listen, moving forward, you're going to see that this box up here is going to be the most important box that we feel is going to be worth the dealer's time. So with that said, I think we went through about a year and a half, 2 years where the pain point was incredible to try and get information into that box. And I remember what I kept telling people in my 20 clubs, which was, if you don't know what information goes in that box, that means you don't know what information is coming in your dealership. So the first thing that you have to do is we have to go and we have to aggregate that information and find out exactly what it means to us, right? So let's talk about that.
You sit here and you think about it, if the dealer doesn't know, what's that customer experience like in the digital landscape? Polk Industry tells us, and has been for 3 years now, that 95% of new and pre-owned buyers start their journey in the digital landscape. Just hear that. 95, which is all of us. And you sit there and you think about, how do you shop? Bob, when you want to get a new suit like that, you probably go online and look at Armani and some of your favorite brands, and right, and it starts there, trickles down into the store. So the digital traffic log appears over the physical traffic log, because at some point, the majority of people, if for legal reasons alone, find themselves inside the store to actually consummate that deal and put the deal together. And we're also tracking, what about people who don't want to come in the store, right? And that's a very small number right now. Again, legally they have to come in and sign papers on that. So it starts in the digital landscape and ends in the physical landscape. But if you don't understand the metrics in the digital landscape, how can you possibly know if you're winning or losing in attracting them inside of our stores? I think we've all seen door swings go down year over year. But what's interesting is that most of us in here, your digital leads have remained almost steady or almost stagnant. It's what we're doing with them, or more importantly, according to our data, what we're not doing with that digital lead. And I think it's just new. You know?
I want to hit them, and I want your thoughts on this. I want to hit you guys with a statistic. So we track all leads that are coming in the digital landscape that comes into a dealership. Now, what that means is that that's your website, that is your chat function, those are emails, those are telephone calls, so on and so forth with leads, right? That's anything less than the door swinging and a human being coming in here. And I want you to think about this. All leads national average for our dealers last year was 2,023. 2,023 all leads coming through, coming into your dealership in the digital space. Appointments set off of that was 532, which is a percentage of about a quarter. So if a quarter of those digital leads that were coming into your dealership were actually set to come in, who in here thinks that that is an actual good number? One person. Will you come to the mic on that one so we can talk about it? We're not gonna make you. We're not gonna make fun of you. I just want to. We just want to work through this. Yeah. So you raise your hand. Thank you so much. What's your name?
JP.
JP.
Yep.
JP, where are you from?
Guatemala.
Guatemala.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for making the massive trip up here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So speak into the mic. You think that a 25% appointment set is a pretty decent number?
Yeah, I think it's very high.
You think it's high?
Usually, you contact thousands of people and you get maybe 1% of actual, contact with product and salespeople. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, remember, this isn't us contacting people. This is incoming leads into the dealership and us responding back and trying to get a commitment to come into your dealership. So an appointment set. That's not even kept, that's just set. I've actually got JP committed to coming into the dealership on Monday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay?
That's pretty good.
Okay, fantastic. I love that answer. Thanks for coming up to the mic, JP. Dantzler, what do you think about that?
Based on the premise that where we come from, what could possibly be more important than who came in our store and how do we handle them? So then when you go to the digital landscape, you had, let's just call it 100 people that put their hand up in the air and said, hey, I'm interested. I'm interested in hearing from you about this motorcycle or this UTV or ATV that I'm interested in. And 25% of them would allow you to engage with them. How many times have you said, gone to the website, built a Toyota truck and said, I'm interested, and you're only going to engage with 75% of the respondents, or I'm sorry, 25% of the respondents. How upset would you be if 1 out of 4 actually got through, as opposed to, I put my hand up for a reason, I'm actually interested, and I'm gonna suggest to you, because we know a benchmark, an attainable benchmark, can be 40%. Appointments set. We know that to be attainable. That's from the people who do this for a living. That is all they do for a living, is how many appointments can we get set off of the digital leads that are out there, okay? 40%. And again, Tony's definition of a digital lead is anything not called a front door swing. That's a digital lead, okay? That's coming off your website. That's coming off of third-party websites. That's an email. That's a text. That's I built the thing online and I would like somebody to contact me. We know that we can engage with 40, we can get an appointment set for 40% of those people, right? It's how we go about responding to them. Now, if I walked in your door, I'm gonna guess you would have some part of your sales process is the greet. You would engage with me, we'd have a really good time, and then you'd find out why I'm interested in that particular product, and we'd have a couple conversations about features, advantages, and benefits, and get into a presentation and all that kind of stuff. But the first thing is the emotional engagement between two human beings that has nothing to do with the product. Is that what your response looks like? Or is your response, yes, I have it, here's how much money it is, when can you come in and see it? Or some iteration of that. I just think we're bad at the greet in the digital landscape.
I would agree with you. Let me hit you guys with a couple other statistics here. So let's talk about in dealership deliveries. Off of 4,000, basically 4,400 greets. That means that one of your salespeople has gone up and gotten enough information to have something actionable back to a customer, right?
In the physical brick and mortar.
In the physical brick and mortar, we have greeted 4,400 people off 20,000 door swings, okay? Of those 4,400 greets, you had 418 deliveries, which was 10%. 10% deliveries off of greets. That's what our national averages are saying. Listen to this. Off of 2023 leads coming in digitally, you have had 113 deliveries at a rate of 25%.
25% close rate if you can get them to hook up with you in the digital landscape.
So we've been trying on this podcast for years now to tell everybody they're both important. Your physical brick and mortar front door is paramount to making sure your business moves forward. But I want you to hear those numbers again. At a 25% delivery rate in your digital space, you're closing more people that you're talking to now electronically. And yet we would sit there and ask you, do you actually have a sales process for that electronic space? Do you have a system in place to make sure that you are actually talking to those customers? Better yet, do you even know where to go get the information to understand how many people are being put into the top of the hopper? Do you know how to go and track your emails and your phone calls and your chat bots and all the manufacturer's emails coming into you? Because if you don't know right now and say, yep, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mechanisms that tell me that, you don't know, and that is literally not having salespeople on your sales floor with a front door opening and closing. So numbers don't lie, and that is a prime example, Dantzler, of you got to watch your digital front door.
You know, I'm going to steal a little bit of Rollick's thunder. Mandy from Rollick gave me this report, and I want to steal one number off of it, which is when responding to the digital lead. You guys know that if you just put the stock photo on your website up of the motorcycle or ATV that's for sale inside your store, it gets very little attention. If you put a really nice, well-done photo, it gets more attention. If you put a whole bunch of really done well-done photos, it gets a lot of attention. And if you put a video up there, it gets a whole lot of attention, right? So then you sit there and you're like, okay. And in this particular report, you know, we talk about 95%, according to Polk Industry, I mentioned that before, 95% of the time people start their journey in the digital landscape, which is great. It sounds good. It's a good talking point. And then you're like, yeah, but where? Where in the digital landscape? Just that means I go online and I go, where? I go to Google, I go to the manufacturer's website, I go like literally, where do I go on that? What's interesting is without fail, they go to the manufacturer's website and the dealer's website, okay? And why? They go to the manufacturer's website to find out what that crazy looking thing was that went down the road by them on the interstate. Like, I want to check that out. What's the name of that thing so that I can see if it's at my local dealer? They're looking at your local dealer to see if you have it in inventory, okay? It's the piece in the middle that I find amazing. The second place that customers go is to a ratings and review site. The second place that they go is to a ratings and review site. Right? So they're either going to your site because they're checking inventory if they know what it is, or they're going to the OEM site to figure out what that thing was so I know how to look it up. But the next place they go to, the most important place they go to, is a third-party rating and review site. Do you know what the #1 social media site is right now? Any guesses? TikTok? No. It's good you like all the dance moves. Tony's good at that on TikTok. It's not Facebook, it's not Instagram, it's not TikTok, it's YouTube. And you know what's on YouTube? Videos.
Not still pictures?
Not still pictures. Videos and video breakdowns and video reviews of somebody walking me through the new thing that I can't live without anymore. And I'll go, how many of you, show of hands, have gone deep down the rabbit hole, something's of interest to you, and you go read all the reviews on it? Right? Look around the room.
Why are not all hands going up? Come on,
do it.
everybody knows that you're doing it.
Sitting there all mad. I don't know. You go down the rabbit hole with this thing, and then you work yourself up into a frenzy. We know it takes 20 touches before somebody pulls the trigger on a want-based item. Customers are getting themselves to touch 11, 12, 13, and 14 before you ever even hear from them. Which is why they're so much more prone to being closed in the digital landscape, because they're already emotional about it before they ever walk in the store, as opposed to a front door swing. How do I keep them on the line, if you will, and make them want to buy from us? You do it with videos. And I'm not saying stock videos. I'm saying take this thing in your pocket before you hit respond. And I know, if I were going to ask you guys, how do you respond to a digital lead? Somebody out there has been through some training, and they're like, well, you need to hit them with an email and a text message and a phone call, because one of those might get through, and then we're going to follow up on how they want to communicate. That's a good strategy, right?
Yep.
I'm going to try to call you, but if you call me with a number I don't know, I don't answer it. Anybody else in that boat? If you email me, it might be in my spam folder. I didn't get it, right? And you're going to text me, and I'm like, who's texting me? Who is this person over here? But I wonder if you just took that little amazing tool that's in every one of your pockets and turned the camera on yourself and took a video of you with all of your enthusiasm and all of your excitement for the thing they're looking for. And you said, hey, I just wanted to reach out to you and tell you how awesome it is that you're interested in this product. It's so cool. I would love to set up a two-way video call with you so that I could share my team with you and walk you around the building a little bit. I know time's valuable, and you probably are reaching out because you're trying to save a little time on the front end of it, but man, I'm just so grateful. My name's Sam, and I look forward to hearing back from you. That's it. No features, no benefits, no price tags, no any of that kind of stuff. And you send that over text, and you send that over email. That's what, we're so addicted to videos. That should be your first response, not the safety net. Invariably, I ask people, when do you send a video? And they're like, I don't know, if I can't really get anything going, I'll go out and do a walk around, then I'll talk a little bit on the video and send. It's the last response. And I do training with this organization called One Water Marine Group every year. There's over 100 marine rooftops that we do boat show training for. And I had asked that question at 6 different locations in the training that they meet regionally. And I said, when do you use video? And they said, usually at the end. And my next question was, how often does it work? Across the board, 100% of the time. The videos always work. We've closed every deal that we sent a video to. And I'm like, then why wouldn't that be your first response? And the answer for most of it is, most of us like, I didn't think of that. Sure. I didn't think of doing that quick little video. And for all of you who are like, well, I don't like how I look or sound on camera. Well, you still look or sound like that when I come into your store. That's still you. Just turn the dumb camera on yourself and say what you were going to type and put some emotion behind it. Be shocked at the engagement to get to a 40% appointment set. That's my little rant on that.
That wasn't a little rant. That was a big rant. That was a Bob Key rant. Okay, so we did our part. We greased your gullets. We did the first question. Who's going to stand up, man up, woman up, get to the mic? Let's go. Come on.
Hot topic.
Somebody. There we go. Here we go.
Hey, I'd like
Get to the mic. Close to that mic.
F&I.
Yes.
Tell
F&I
everybody your name.
product.
Yeah,
I'm
name.
Jeff.
There you go.
Carter Powersports, Las Vegas.
Okay.
Came a long way, buddy.
Yeah, right. Took me 10 minutes. Actually, 30. It's raining.
You okay? You all right?
Good.
All right, good.
So in F&I, we're all the OEMs except KTM we sell have their own warranty, extended service contracts.
Yep.
But we also have 3 different off brands that are a lot cheaper. Can we talk about putting profit over loyalty to the OEM product?
What, and the question is, should
Yeah.
we
The
sell
The question
profit?
is where do we focus? Do we focus on GP or do we focus on loyalty to the OEM product, on extended service contracts?
My question to you is, why would you focus on an OEM warranty? What loyalty are you trying to uphold?
So my loyalty is to the consumer, right? Because
you
they
go.
pay my bills.
Yep.
And sometimes the OEM warranties do pay more. They give us more leverage. They give us more flexibility. They give us goodwill, where the aftermarket warranties don't.
I'll answer a question. You can answer it as well. Is my opinion is your loyalty should be to your customer and to your bottom line, which keeps you in business. Yeah. The worst thing that you could do for your community is what? Go out of business. Right? So when we're talking about the most profitable point in any dealership, which 100% of your contracts that are written are just on paper. So you're selling air, you're selling insurance, right? So it's highly profitable in your dealership. If you can look yourself in the mirror and say that the product that I sold that was most profitable to me and put the most money in the bank was also really good for my customer, and it covers the unit, covers the warranties that they come in, keeps them happy, keeps me happy, service likes to do the work, and it's good to sell in the F&I office, that's the one that you should sell. Me personally, again, loyalty has to work both ways. When you're loyal to a brand and they're loyal back to you and you guys have a really good synergistic relationship between the two of you, that can come into play. Is it still good to the customer? Does it still affect what the customer does for your dealership? Does it fix their unit when it comes in? Does it take all the hassle out of trying to get those things covered when they walk through the door? If you can answer those questions, then I would say that there's probably something to be said for a little bit of loyalty. Now that's playing both sides of the fence, and I recognize that. But number one, it has to be the customer, and number two, it has to be to your bottom line, because who says that you can't make money in this business? That's why we're all here, is to make dough and to keep our customer base happy. What do you think?
I love it when Walmart says where our customers come first.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Your profit comes first. Because if you go out of business, like a customer wants it for free. Good for you. You give it to them for free. You're not in business anymore. Your profits don't come first. I mean, your customer doesn't come first. The profits have to come first, right? And I can't have the experience I'm trying to create without my team, which is why Tony's talking about your team. It all revolves around the customer, the team, and ultimately the profitability of the store. Manufacturers don't like that. Manufacturers want to be number one on that priority list. Every one of them who's here. You mentioned KTM. I love KTM. I got great relationships with them. But at some point, you've got to be profitable, and you have to sell the thing that makes sense inside your store. So I would just run the math on that, like, which one makes sense, and then is it a loyalty call where I'm going to get the same customer response either way and it really doesn't make any difference, they're going to go either way? Well, then maybe you go into the loyalty section over here. If they're not going to take the warranty because it's not the price point they need to be at, then you come over here. I sit here and I think about the ongoing debate about I got $500 to spend. Do I spend $500 on the F&I product, or I spend $500 on the P&A product, right? And you get every F&I manager who says, oh, you should be spending it over here. And everybody in P&A says, oh, you should be spending it over here because those things are cancelable over here. Well, these things are returnable over here just to balance the equation there. And my answer is both. My answer is always both. Why do you think that they can't pull out a credit card and buy a $500 helmet and get the $500 F&I product? But nobody wants to think that way. So I'm up for playing both sides of the field, which is exactly what Tony said. What's the right thing to do for the manufacturer? What's the right thing to do for the customer? And then sometimes you're going to go back and forth between those based off of, does it make sense for the customer? Can I do it and still appease the OEM? But I think that's a case-by-case call. I don't think it's one size fits all.
Great question.
That was a good one.
Awesome. All right, who else do we got?
Here comes
Get
Bob.
ready, Steve.
Here comes Bob.
Kim Harrison, get ready.
Bob.
I see you too. Get ready. Let's go, Big Bob.
Nick Bob.
Before I even got there. So, Mike, Bob Key, Destination Cycle, Kerrville, Texas. Longtime client of these hooligans. So my question is, what do you guys think the next big thing is? We look back and we, go three-wheelers, sport bikes, cruiser explosion, sit-down, high-powered watercraft, large displacement ATVs, and now the wonderful world of side-by-sides. What do you think the next big thing is going to be? Because in our 20-group experience, we found that the e-bike enthusiasm that we thought would transfer over to somebody pushing a thumb throttle on an electric bicycle going 25 miles an hour and the wind in their hair would have them back in our store 6 months later saying, I want to go faster, you've got motorcycles, let's talk, really hasn't materialized. So what do you guys think the next big thing is going to be?
You're asking us to pontificate here, completely opinion.
Sam, that's all the hell you ever do.
Ba-da-ba. Okay. Do you know where the word hooligan came from, Bob?
Yeah.
It comes from the Hoolie Gang, which was a gang in New York City back in the day that was creating rabble-rousing and doing all that kind of stuff.
And your
being that my
grandfather was in that, right?
No, but my mom's name is Fry, and I'm Irish, so I'm offended. So I wanted to start with that I'm offended already. Now, when you say what's the next best thing, like, we didn't know UTVs were out there until people who really love Jeeps started decking them out differently. And then when I was growing up as a kid, there was a sand rail, right? And so that kind of came into its own. But then you're like, well, it's not trikes. It's not going to be trikes, right? It's not going to be flying motorcycles anytime soon, as much as I really want one. I've seen a couple on Instagram before. But I really do believe it's going to be some kind of a hybrid between more than two wheels going down the road. It's going to be the cool, tricked out Jeeps in a sport world, right? You remember when KTM came out with what was the car, Expo? The Expo, but it was track only. It was a race car for the track only. I think it's going to be some hybrid of a sports car that started as a motorcycle. It's not that Vanderhall three-wheeled looking thing, but it's some weird kind of hybrid in between it. So I just think people are spending more and more on these toys, and they're going to get more elaborate and more powerful. I just think it's some version of the explosion we're seeing off-road is going to start trickling its way into the on-road scene. Don't know what that's going to look like.
I'm going to go super far out here, Uncle Bob, and I'm going to say that I feel like it's going to be a return of two wheels. Mild upticks in small CC, right? Small stuff is selling. We're starting to gain traction with that millennial Gen Z demographic. We have numbers that'll prove that, right? I know we're aging out on boomers out of two wheels, but if we look at where things are heading as far as electrification, smaller CC stuff, using two wheels for actual transportation to and from work, and you see a ever increasing dual sport presence that's always growing, so I can ride it on the road, I can ride it in the dirt, I can take long trips into it. Dare I say, and good Lord, in 5 years when this plays, and they're like, hey, remember when you said this, and it completely failed? I think we're going to see a resurgence in two-wheel motorcycles coming back around. I mean, when Sam and I were high school, college kids, teenagers, that was the coolest thing on earth to be able to get. So I personally think it's going to come back around, and we're going to see a big resurgence in two-wheeled power sports.
We're also seeing sport bikes ticking back up right now, right? So that whole 80s sport bikes craze that rolled into 90s, the sport bike explosion, we're seeing that tick up with a different generation. So is it possible that instead of 3.5% of the population playing in our space, that maybe we go back to what made it really awesome and it goes to 4 and 5 and 6% playing in the space? Right. I don't know.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, you look at Asia, you look at India, you look at all those places where it's a mode of transportation because of population increase and cost of cars and whatnot. So who knows if it'll happen. But now I'm recorded as saying it. Yeah. All right. Bob answered one or asked one. We had one from up here. We got somebody standing up coming to the mic. All right. Love it.
I was going to ask what your thoughts were. I mean, obviously.
Closer to the mic.
I was going to see what your thoughts were. Obviously, during COVID, we all had a great opportunity to move a lot of non-currents.
Yeah.
We got really clean. We started making profit on pretty much everything. Now we've got inventory. Now there's a little bit of a balance where a lot of the OEMs are, hey, we got this program. grab these bikes, get this deal. And it seems like as we go on, the deals get better. And it's that fine line now where we see the incentive programs are kind of pushing everyone back, especially some of these weaker dealers that are kind of all of a sudden now gone back to the discount model, right? So
Yep.
trying to find that fine balance between what your thoughts are from the OEMs now providing a lot of the rebate programs are starting to come back, and we're seeing everyone kind of quickly getting back to the old mentality of the discounts. What are your thoughts in regards to advice on how to play that balance between getting what the OEMs are kind of asking for versus, you know, not sitting on a whole whack of stuff?
Yeah. So
Great question.
This is what I feel on, and I'll answer that first, and then I'll hand it over to Sam, which is we have seen not only unit increase on the floors of dealerships, we have seen 7 figures hit on the amount of money that are sitting on in parking lots and on showroom floors. I personally feel that the incentive programs have become heroin, and they are convoluted, they're hard to understand, they're making dealers do a million different things, jump through hoops, and tons of brands are doing it, which then promotes a model of racing to the bottom. If I race to the bottom and sell enough of these things, hold back, or I can get that big shot of injection at the end of the month that I'm chasing for the month of October, that a brand will come out and say, we want to make sure we capture, you know, Q3 as the highest selling whatever, so we're going to make dealers really get on the juice to do this. Unfortunately, the amount of inventory that has been put onto floors from sea to shining sea has now promoted a volume model. And for a lot of dealers in the metric, Harley, and marine space, volume is going to win the day. And at the end of the day, do I like to see that, especially coming off that sugar high of COVID, where we were grossing and making all kinds of money, and we were DSRPing our stuff, and we finally had value, and we had customers that were more interested in the unit than all the units that we had. It makes it feel 10 times worse. So I'll go on record on the podcast as saying the incentive programs, while good, and if you this, then I'll rebate you that, or we'll hold back there, or you'll get a bunch of points if you do this. How about we all have a good starting line and a good process, and we value our product that's sitting on the floor and say, you know what, it's worth this, and I'm going to give you my show in here, and that's what's going to sell the unit. You don't have to go down here and get the lowest price or at cost because everybody has so many of them. You're going to come here because I'm treating you well, and I'm making you feel like you have that second home here, and you're going to come in here, you know, once a month, couple times a week, whatever that might be, to come and see my staff because they treat you well. So that's my answer on that question.
I'm going to set the stage for you, and then I'm going to hopefully provide some version of a solution. To put some numbers to what Tony said, average dealer at the end of 2022 was sitting on $3.3 million of inventory, okay? 133 grand of that was obsolete, 12 months old or older. At the end of 2023, $4.5 million of inventory, 350 grand of that was obsolete, okay? Now, you look at flooring costs, because you say some of their programs are pretty good, they like to sweeten the pot. When we look at flooring, you guys think about the month hit. You think about, we spent whatever it was, 20 grand for the month for flooring, or whatever your number is. We look at it as a per unit sold number of the inventory that you have. How much are you paying for every unit that you sell? Because you have to factor that in as a cost of sale. Before you say no to that deal, I'm going to stroke a check for whatever, a couple $100. So in 2022, flooring per unit sold was at $51, and the month of December was at $119 per unit. So 51 year to date, trending higher at $119, okay, for the month. You go to 2023, the per unit sold flooring cost is $232, trending $300, and you're sitting on 4.5 million in inventory with 340,000 units of obsolescence, dollars at cost of obsolescence. That doesn't sound very good, does it? So then you go into, just like when we have parts and accessories obsolescence, like, what are we going to do about it? And then the second question that nobody wants to talk about is, what got us into this position, and how do we not do that again? Right? So what you're going to do about it, unfortunately, to Tony's point, is you're going to take the deal. You need to have a model inside your store of take the deal. What we're looking at is that margins are still too close. This is coming from a company that always teaches hold margin, hold margin, hold margin. I'm telling you, your margins are too close today than where they were during COVID. Your ego is telling you, walk the customer because I'm giving him a point or two off of where we were just 2 years ago. Well, the industry is very different than where we were just 2 years ago. And ultimately, it comes down to, can you replace the unit or the customer easier? And during COVID, you could get another customer for that unit at the high margin. And right now, you can get another unit far easier than getting another customer. So take the deal. You're gonna have to work your way through the inventory that you have on hand to get somewhat normalized in the inventory, while also knowing that even if the right number of units in your inventory, call it 345 units of all kinds, in 2019, 345 units was a whole different dollar amount than what they became in 2023 and 2024. So you're gonna have to accept the fact you're gonna have to carry a higher dollar amount because the prices on everything went up, including the same number of units. So you gotta get healthy and then figure out how do you stop the influx. And that's where Tony was going. You talk about flooring, free flooring is always an enticement. Uncle Ed used to say free flooring is like wetting the bed. It feels good for a little bit. Then it comes back around and it hits, and it's not very much fun when the flooring starts to hit. And so I understand manufacturers in a position where they feel like, quite frankly, they missed out. If they would have had enough inventory to get you supplied during 2021 and 2022, everybody could have made a whole lot more money, including them. And then they get on the gas, they produce more inventory, and now they're trying to get you to take it for probably all the right reasons and all the right trends. But the reality is, if you're buried in inventory, you cannot run a healthy dealership. So much like Jim Woodruff talking this morning about leveraging the pre-owned space and buying what makes sense for your segment and your particular part of the industry, you have to do that with every order from your manufacturers. You cannot be enticed by the free flooring programs. If you also get the flooring and it makes sense for your dealership, then absolutely do it. But you have to use some historical data from your dealership to say, does it make sense? So how do we get out of it? We take the deal, and then how do we stop ourselves from getting into it? You have to look at every one of those orders as, does it make sense for the strategy or the game we're playing, if you will, for this calendar year 2024? And sometimes you have to say no.
Good question.
That was a good one.
Who's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it. Get close to that mic for us.
Looking for kind of advice or ideas for all the trade values that come in where someone's looking for yesterday's number on the trade value, but they love the today's number on the discount. So we try to talk about payments being the same or relative payments to what they're doing, or that the difference at the bottom line is similar. But obviously for everybody, it's a topic that comes up all the time of guy wants way more for it, and relative or not to being way upside down to what they owe on it or whatever, but they just think it's worth X amount of dollars compared to what all the math and details tell you as you do some research on it.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. and this is something that, if you listen to our podcast, we've been talking about this for years now, which was, and hear me when I say this, is everybody in here should have made a lot of money in the past 3 years. It was your right to make that money after all of the grind for years, if not decades, of having to, pinch pennies and be squeezed by the customer. We finally had our day, right? But we knew there was going to be a reckoning because we were selling things at MSRP, which you should have. We were selling things at DSRP, which you should have. Because again, there's only two markets, supply, demand. And there was a demand market that was hitting us big time, right? So you had it, there wasn't a lot of it, customers wanted it, you should have sold it high. But we knew what that was doing, is that was flooding the market with stuff that was out there that was priced super high, and it was gonna put people in a bad equity position when they wanted to jettison that thing because, man, I made a really bad decision when I was stuck at home for 8 months eating chocolate chip cookies. That was you, right?
Yeah, that was. They were good too.
Yeah, right? I made a bad decision. I bought a boat, I bought a car, I bought a house, I bought all these things because it was dropping dopamine in my system, and now I'm upside down in it, right? So we knew they were gonna be coming back. We also knew that they were gonna flood the pre-owned market. We were just talking to Jim Woodruff and Mike Murray about this on a podcast we just shot about an hour ago, which is
Which, if you don't know those guys from National Powersports
Yeah.
Auction,
National Powersports
we meet
Auction.
with them quarterly on the podcast, just so you know.
So we were just discussing this with them, and a couple of things that you have to know. Are you taking in the unit to make a ton of profit? Meaning, I'm gonna take in the pre-owned because I'm gonna sell this thing because it's still hot and I'm gonna make a lot of money, okay? Am I doing a feel-good deal? I'm taking this in because I need to get rid of this, and the math is going to work on this. I still need to take the pre-owned in. Or am I taking the pre-owned in because I'm just going to send it to auction? So all I'm doing is trying to make the customer feel like, yeah, I'll give you a couple hundred here, 1,000 there on this deal, right? So the first thing that you have to do is you have to convince your undertrained, relatively new sales staff who was doing nothing but swinging with their eyes closed and crossing the fence every time, knocking it out of the park, right? You need to convince them to understand exactly what to do when talking to the customer. It can't be the customer working the desk, it's the dealership working the customer. And that's just a straight conversation of, hey, listen, I know for a fact that you bought this for $45,000 a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, what it's bringing in today based off of all my live metrics in front of me is $21,000. So the conversation has to be earnest, it has to be honest, and you have to do what you do every time you go to the desk, which is educating the customer. Here's what that thing is worth today. Listen, I know that you can probably go get more money if you were to sell it, but that involves you going to the local grocery store parking lot. You got to take pictures and videos and put it online, and strange people coming to your house. You don't want to do that. Listen, I can help you here with this amount there. I might be able to take a little bit off of the new unit because it's going out. But at the end of the day, that's what it is worth right now. Live market value. Train your staff to know that. Train your sales manager to buy right at the curb, because that's where your profit starts, or that is where your profit ends, is right there at the buy.
Yeah, I just have a small piece to add on to that, which is reasonable people have reasonable conversations. Reasonable people knew they were overpaying during COVID. They knew it. And they knew that come the backside of it, they weren't going to get what they wanted to out of it. And I think when you sit with them and you have a conversation about that, most of them are going to go, yeah, I knew that. I just didn't know it would be this far apart. Like, I get that. And as we move forward, like your next unit, I can take care of you on your next unit, but I can't bury myself by taking a 15K loser on this one here. So maybe there's a number we can have that's somewhere in the middle. When Tony talks about, because all of the live metrics are telling me that, and let me share them with you, Mr. Customer, that builds a lot of credibility with people, as opposed to just, I can't give you that kind of money for that, right? It's what the data's telling us. A lot of times people use Foursquares and they think there's some shady magic going on in closing a deal with a Foursquare. Foursquare is simply showing the data and saying, well, the banks need to see at least 20% down. Here's where the number comes from. Let me show you what your bike is going for at auction. That's where this trade appraisal comes from. When there's data to support the decision that was made, reasonable people have reasonable conversations. You're not going to win them all. It's unfortunate.
Great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, who's next? We're going to be able to take about 2 more. Oh, here we
right
go.
there.
I got
There
one
you go.
here.
There's your
I got one here. Steve, I got you after.
Go,
You got
go,
him
raise
right
them.
there, and then you're up, Steve.
Greg from Elway Powersports, and I've got a question on website pricing.
Say that again.
Website pricing.
Website pricing.
All right, Greg.
Click to quote, hiding fees. What's your guys' view on that? I'd much rather have a conversation with an individual versus somebody just passing over on price, especially with MAP policies. So I was just kind of curious what you guys felt.
So if you guys didn't hear it, what's the strategy for website pricing? You want to have a conversation. Greg wants to have a conversation with people, but I got to have a people interested in engaging with me based off of how I present these things on my website pricing. What do you find with website pricing?
Website pricing is you got to go with full disclosure. The fact is people think that they're losing a lot of customers because they're giving as much information as possible, right? So let's hide information. And then let's start with an uphill battle of a customer that comes in with an expectation of a $10,000 unit, but wait, no, we meant $13,000 because here's all these hidden fees. And so I understand that the game can be tricky. There's a lot of different legalities in a lot of different states on what you can and can't do and what you shall and shall not put in your online pricing. But if you think that the only thing that brings the customer in is to, again, you chase to the bottom and you throw in all the rebates and you throw in the Tuesday deal, well, those are the kind of customers you're going to get, right? I would prefer to have more information on your website of your pricing that fully explains it, because at the end of the day, how many people in here go shopping blind for anything? less our groceries. Nobody. Everybody does research. Everybody has the most powerful computer on earth in their back pocket. You've been shopped a million times before I get to the point where I want to have a conversation about the price and the fees on your website. So again, to Sam's point, is give them all the information that they want. If they're asking you, give them all the information that you want, and make sure that you do it in a manner, video, in which your personality shines. Because which looks better? Your face talking into the phone about, hey, listen, you know, we do this, that, and the other thing at Elway, blah, 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 right? Or just a still picture with a bland email of here's the price, here's the fees, send. So you got to make yourself more interesting with full disclosure.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the mean age of the purchasers these days, and keep in mind on this report, which is from the MIC, I presented this morning, it's got Gen X listed as 43 to 58 years old, and millennials at 28 to 42 years old. Okay, you see some different reports showing a couple years different direction on all those. So basically, 43 and to 58 is Gen X, below 43 down to 28 is millennials. And you sit here and you're like, listen to the mean age of who's buying. Cruiser category, 45 years old. Sport category, 36 years old. Touring, 54 years old. Traditional, 45 years old. Adventure, 52 years old. Dual sport, 47 years old. Which is to say, it's Gen Xers and a little bit of millennials who are buying. So it's funny because we look at trends and people are like, oh, well, how do people love to shop right now? Well, how do people love to shop? If we're talking about a Harley market, I'm still staging my sales process for the boomers and the Gen Xers, right? If we're talking the metric industry, I'm staging it for the Gen Xers, and I will branch out to boomer and I will branch out to millennial. But millennial is the generation that is coming up. And the one thing we know about millennials when they shop, they hate negotiation. Hate it with a passion. They'd rather walk away from the deal than negotiation, which is why we were starting to see a lot of those one-price shops. Did you know that some of the one-price shops out there are the most profitable dealerships in the country? The one-price shops are some of the most profitable. They'd rather pay more than actually go through any kind of negotiation. And part of that experience is, to Tony's point, transparency. So as we move out of Gen Xers, where the core buyer is a Gen Xer, when we move into millennials, we have to set the stage for our sales process being adaptable and interested to the people who are going to be buying bikes. So long gone are the days of don't give them a price until we get them in the store, right? You just can't operate that way anymore. The prices are out there everywhere. So you need to be fully transparent on your website, and the hope is you're fully transparent. And to Tony's point, the response of a human being on camera, engaged, calling me by name, exciting to hear from me, that is where I'm going to call, because reasonable people have reasonable conversations.
Another good question.
Did you see that?
I did. We got our throat slit, so we have to shut up. So, hey, listen, Vegas, we're super pumped to be here at AIM. We are really excited that you guys actually came for the first ever live podcast, a Garagecast. So we are at our booth back there right by CF Moto. Stop by, say hi, sit down, have a 10-minute conversation with us about the industry. We'd love to get you on air. For Sam Dantzler, I'm Tony Gonzales. This has been Garagecast. Have a fantastic Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.